So good morning, everyone. Welcome to our first Homes for Kathy workshop of 2022, the value of tenancy and independent living skills in preventing homelessness. For those who don't know me, my name is Vicky McDonald, and I'm the Communications and Marketing Lead for Homes for Kathy, and I work for Hightown Housing Association, which, for those of you who don't know, is one of Homes for Kathy's founding organisations, and I run all the campaign with our board. So if you're not familiar with Homes for Kathy, and I know a few organisations joining today may not be, we're a group of over 100 housing associations, charities and local authorities who are committed to ending homelessness and encouraging others in the sector to do more to tackle the homelessness crisis. Our members pledged to work towards 9 commitments, which were developed with a homelessness charity crisis. And if you're interested in finding out more, you can see these on our website under commitments. So our workshops, including this one, are designed to help members and their partner organisations, because we appreciate that housing associations work with many partner organisations. The aim is to really help them explore ways in which they can put these commitments into practice. So whether that be through the services they offer, the practices they have in place in their organisations and their policies. So that brings me on today's topic of tenancy and independent living skills, something which we know can help people experiencing homelessness overcome some of the potential barriers that they may face in accessing housing. But also prevent homelessness from occurring in tenants who may already be housed, but they may potentially be at risk of losing a tenancy. So today we have 2 excellent speakers who are going to share their insights and knowledge on this subject. First off, we'll be welcoming Rebecca White, and Rebecca's CEO of Your Own Place, and they're specialists in supporting people to develop the knowledge, the skills, the confidence, the resilience to sustain a tenancy. And then we'll be hearing from Paula Tuck. Paula is Assistant Director of Customer Services at Saffron Housing Trust, which is a Homes for Kathy member. Saffron is part of a new alliance of housing associations in the east of England called Independent East, and that alliance has partnered with Your Own Place to support tenants to develop tenancy and independent living skills. So we'll be hearing from our 2 speakers first, and then at the end of the workshop there'll be an opportunity for you attendees to pose questions to our speakers. So please feel free to type any questions that come to mind in the chat box. So if you hover over the bottom, if you're not au fait with Zoom, hover over the bottom and there'll be a chat box, or if you can't see it, click on more and you should find it. You can ask any questions in there, and I'll be able to field them to our speakers at the end. Alternatively, at the end of the session, you can ask a question directly. So if you click on the reactions tab, you should be able to find that as well at the bottom. There should be a raise hand icon. So click on that, and then I'll know that you want to ask a question. So as I keep pointing out, I think we're all probably on mute now, but if you haven't already muted, then please could you do so, because I think we've got quite a few in our meeting today, so just to avoid any disruptions. So we'll end up wrapping up at about 12. We're recording the session just in case anyone wants to watch it afterwards, and that will be available on our website under resources along with the presentations. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Rebecca White from Your Own Place. So over to you, Rebecca.
Thank you so much, Vicky. And I'm just going to head straight into sharing my screen this morning. Thank you. Okay, a few nods would be great to know that you can see that.
Yes, we can.
Brilliant. Thanks, Vicky. Thanks, Homes for Kathy. Thank you, Paula, for joining me from Saffron today, and everyone for giving up an hour this morning to let me talk about my mastermind subject, which is our offer of tenancy and independent living skills plus workshops. I've chosen this slide this morning because it's always a great intro to anything we do digitally, and it's actually one of our signature slides when we're delivering our offer online, which we do. So working around the screen there, you've got cameras on. So if you can have cameras on, it's so lovely to see you. Otherwise, I'm really speaking to my geraniums that are just behind my laptops. I'd much rather see you. I've put my own timer on this morning. I've got 25 minutes to talk to you a bit about what we do. It would be brilliant if on your picture, you could have your name, just your first name and your organisation. You can rename yourself using the top right 3 dots on your image. Really helps to know who's in the room today. There won't be any coffee breaks, so that particular picture is redundant. I'll be asking you to get a little bit involved, maybe a thumbs up, a thumbs down, and a tiny bit of annotation. But overall, this is a supportive place where being really honest, and really hope to hear your thoughts and questions at the end as well. And we're locked in and being recorded, I understand. So that is my first slide this morning. And another slide that really models our approach, and again, we do physically or digitally, is we use a lot of scaling questions. It really gets people involved. So I'd love you to use your annotate function, and many of you will have got experience of using that. I've got a statement here, which is that I understand how your own place supports tenancy sustainment to prevent homelessness. I believe in the top right of your screen, I'm hoping you can find view options, and from there find your annotate bar, and then grab anything you like, a sticker, a love heart, draw a line, and mark where you are on this line. If you disagree with that statement, get your mark down the left-hand end. If you agree with it, get it up the right-hand end. As ever with our workshops at your own place, it's non-judgmental. There are no rights and wrongs. You're the experts. Your truth is the truth that counts today. And I can already see some people appearing on the screen. So I'm hoping you can get some marks on the screen. I'll just keep waffling. I'll tell some jokes now. I promise I won't. But I'm starting to see some marks on the screen. I know there's a lot of you in the room today. So it'll be fantastic to see that line populated with what you think between really disagree and really agree, what you know today about how we support tenancy sustainment to prevent homelessness. Fantastic. Just as I hoped, a real divergence of knowledge about what we do in the room, which gives me a fantastic audience to chat with this morning. Just another 30 seconds on that. Don't worry if you can't do it. There's not going to be lots of interactivity today. Don't have lots of time to do our usual, but thank you very much for those of you that have. Okay. Okay. Just going to save that and clear that screen. Thank you. Okay, so moving on. What we do. So I'm going to talk a bit today about what we do, but really crucially before the what is a bit about the why and the who. And so I'm going to start a bit with our values because equality really is at the base of everything we do. As a social enterprise, we exist believing that everybody we work with, whether that's our customers or our trainees, the language we use matters. You today, everybody is our equal, and that really underpins all of our approaches. We take a restorative approach. We hear that word a lot. We do things with people, which is why we use things like that scaling exercise right from the outset. We do things with, we believe that empowers and builds resilience. We are empathic. And what that means in practice is meeting people more than halfway, because we listen to, understand and acknowledge the barriers and challenges people face. And we'll talk more about those. Innovative, engaging and fun. People don't learn if it's boring. So our aim is to be innovative as a social enterprise, is to be engaging, is to be fun, make it enjoyable. That's how we have over 80% retention on our 3-day workshops, because people want to get involved. And it's really connected to being high quality, which also links back to equality. If we value the people we're working with as equals, then to be honest, they deserve nothing less. And our aim as a social enterprise, a not-for-private profit limited company, is always to be professional. So what do we actually do? There's a fantastic slide that my colleague developed a couple of years ago. Those are our 24 current modules that we deliver in small group workshops, mostly digital and face-to-face. It's all a bit dry, but there they are. And different customers want different modules, some more about money, some more about housing options, and some more about relationships, communication and self-care. But those really are our tenancy and independent living skills modules. That's the dry bit. The much more interesting bit, the fun bit, I did say there was fun, is this. It's what we do. We work in small groups. We make people feel great. We enable people to see that they have the answers, the solutions to the challenges they face. We bring together the knowledge in the room. And that's a group in Cromer getting their certificates at the end of a 3-day face-to-face workshop at the end of last year. So I just want to run through 3 of the commitments that I know Homes for Cathy sits within the 9, and how our offer really begins to align with some of those. And there's another image of my colleague Jess. You can see it's physical, it's interactive. She's actually putting cards on a board and probably being told by the room where to put them. So one of the commitments from Homes for Cathy is to offer constructive solutions to applicants who aren't deemed eligible for an offer of a home. We believe our TILS Plus, Tenancy and Independent Living Skills Plus, is just one of those constructive solutions. So how can Tenancy and Independent Living Skills Plus workshops help with that commitment? We de-risk, so we work with people in a range of situations, and we know that affordability assessments are really, really important for many of you, for getting the right tenants in the right place at the right time to be great tenants. We all want great tenants, after all. We want the same things, but sometimes, unfortunately, because of circumstances, because of bad debt, because of previous arrears, it's not always possible to make that offer of a home. So we often find ourselves working with people who are pre-tenancy, who have been turned down previously, and then after attending our workshops, actually the prospective landlord regards them as de-risked, because they have been to our workshop and shown their improved knowledge, skills, confidence and resilience in a whole range of tenancy and independent living skills. And what that means is that we work in supported accommodation, as well as people in their tenancies. I'll go on to talk about a range of situations, and this was a range of workshops where we actually did pre-engagement work with the residents at this particular supported accommodation, so that we could really co-produce what the workshops would look like with them, and we made it work. Believe it or not, the day before had been a blisteringly hot, sunny day, but there they are with their certificates, many of whom had never achieved certificates before. So we work in supported accommodation, providing those solutions. And we build connections, and I'm hoping Paula might come back and talk a bit about this, but I can't express enough how much more our offer is than those dry 24 modules. People build relationships, build connections, and actually it might be that coming to live in your accommodation, if you are a provider, isn't the right thing, but by building connections, people find out more about what their options are. We all care about our communities, not just our tenants and residents, and that enables people to take their next steps. And you can see again there, we've got the colourful cards, we've got the paper on the wall. That's our physical approach. It's fun, people are smiling. So I'm going to move on now quickly to commitment 4. So commitment 4, to not make any tenant seeking to prevent their homelessness homeless, as defined by the plan definition. And I guess I just want to pause here, because it's kind of constantly in the news, constantly facing, let's face it, all of us, we're equals here. There's no them and us. We're facing a cost of living crisis. And we know that many local authorities are voting through their 4.1% rent increases and voting through 2.99% council tax increases. April sees a 1.25% increase in national insurance and up to 54% energy increases, to say nothing of broadband increases, increases in food and other cost of living items. This is a crisis. This is absolutely huge, and it feels so important to be talking about equipping people in our communities, your tenants, your residents, people you support, with these skills to navigate it. I don't pretend I have all the answers. These are massive worldwide challenges, but what we can do is equip people to take steps forward and to find their own solutions and to have better skills to navigate these complexities. So how can tenancy and independent living skills workshops help with this? So just a little image there from a text from James. James was somebody who supported. So I just want to tell you a really quick story about James. James had just got his tenancy. He was in the first year with a social landlord, and he'd got into arrears. James had been in care, actually, and he'd got into arrears very quickly, and things had got pretty bad pretty quickly, and he was getting eviction letters. We're a prevention offer. We want to work and prevent that from ever happening to James, but it did happen. Right place, right time. He got referred onto our workshops. He engaged. He wanted to prevent his homelessness. He came the next week. He achieved his certificate. He attended 100%, and he made that work. We were able to go back to the referrer and say, James was fantastic. He engaged throughout. Here's some changes he's going to make. He showed the certificate. They made an application for discretionary housing benefit, wrote off his arrears. The eviction letters stopped. He kept his tenancy. That was a particular example, particular moment in time for James, but it de-risked from a right precipice situation there that James found himself in. James committed to that. We worked with him to overcome the barriers to making that happen. So we can work with people like James and people in supported accommodation, or people perhaps who haven't passed the affordability assessment. So we can work pre-tenancy. As I said, prevention is our passion and our dream. We believe nobody should have to go through some of these crisis situations. We work with a lot of people during a tenancy, and Paula will talk about that. We know people in their tenancies are struggling right now, have always been struggling. Things are going to get worse. We call them wobbles. We know people are losing jobs, people have a change in life circumstances, people get ill, people lose a partner, people move. These can be difficult times to balance the books, to make things work, to keep that tenancy on track. So that's who we work with. And we may work with people moving on too. Again, we hear again and again from landlords, you care about your communities. And so actually it may be a tenant who is moving on from being your tenant, but that's still a really great outcome if they leave our housing options workshop knowing, actually, I've got options, these are my options. And if people make the best decisions for themselves based on their knowledge, they're more likely to make that work. And as I've mentioned, it's both preventative and proactive. We don't want people to get to crisis if we can avoid it, though James shows it can work in that scenario. We want to support people whilst they can engage with us and be proactive. It's pretty difficult to engage in a range of workshops if things really have got to crisis point. Let's stop that from happening, because that's less impact on all of us and on people's lives. And just in that picture there, you can see our guy on an iPad. So even when we're delivering face-to-face, we bring tech into the session so we can improve digital skills, but also because the world is online. If people are looking at what their debt options are, what their bills options are, then it would be remiss of us not to do some digital skills in those sessions as well, and show people where useful websites are, because it's about building resilience to finding solutions for the future, not being dependent. This is just a great screen grab from one of our digital workshops. The peer learning offers so many benefits. In this one, we've done an exercise where underneath the purple line, we've asked people about what skills they've brought to bear in just their day-to-day tasks. And it enables people to see the skills they have and therefore recognise when they can use them again, when the boiler might break, or when they've missed a payment on a bill. So they realise, actually, yeah, I have got the skills because I used them getting the bus this morning, or I used them getting the kids dinner last night. So it's just an example of finding solutions to solve the problems we have, and that becomes a skill for life, which is so much more poignant than just a brief life skill. Commitment 5, to commit to meeting the needs of vulnerable tenant groups. How can tenancy and independent living skills plus workshops help? So we want to work with people to overcome the barriers people face. Anything from shame in getting help through to learning difficulties. We know people face barriers. We believe people are equals. I'm really proud that in 8 years, we've only ever turned one trainee away from our workshops, because we've made it work by overcoming the barriers. They may be digital tech barriers. We identified 9 digital exclusion barriers, not just not having a device, but the skills, the language, the connectivity. You know all this, and we'll work with customers to overcome those barriers if we're delivering our digital version. People may have communication difficulties. We know for lots of people, because of anxiety or isolation, particularly in the last few years. And we'll work with people and engage people. With every customer, we develop an engagement strategy so we can really identify how best to communicate with people. And literacy. People are often really worried. Is it going to be like school? Is there going to be lots of writing? Hopefully you're seeing from the presentation today, there's really, really very, very little writing, and that overcomes a barrier for most people very quickly. Anxiety and mental health. Again, that's why we have 6 people on a digital workshop, no more than 8 on a face-to-face workshop. and we gain the information before people get in the room, so we can manage those anxieties so that we can support people in a really nurturing way. Today in Brighton, we're delivering a workshop, and we've sent 2 facilitators because we know we've got some particular people in the room who do have some of these challenges. And location will travel anywhere. We recognise people face barriers. That means we've got to meet them more than halfway. So we're delivering in venues all over the place. As I say, in Brighton today, we'll go to where people are. So priority groups, we're often asked by customers, so who do you work with? And the short answer is anyone, but people want a bit more than that. And so we want to work where we're going to have most impact. And so there's a few key groups we work with. Crucially, we're going to ask you, you're the experts with your tenants, your residents, the people you support. Who do you believe would most benefit from our workshops? So we may work with new tenants. I mentioned James earlier. In the first year of his tenancy, we know that's a particularly vulnerable time, and there are higher levels of failure, particularly for young people in that first year. More experienced tenants. We had our first 90-year-old referral 2 weeks ago. We really can work with all groups. The peer learning across that age range is a real thing of beauty to observe. We may work with young tenants. I've said young tenants are at more risk of homelessness overall, but particularly in those early days, more likely to be on a lower income. People leaving care happens to be my background and a particular passion, but with them 3 times more likely to be homeless on the streets. It's where we should be working and putting our focus. Equally, 5 times more likely to end up homeless. People leaving prison. Again, I've done a lot of work in prisons. We've delivered these workshops in HMP Norwich, and we're passionate about reaching people to have that, again, that skills and knowledge that just isn't taught anywhere else, and certainly not in prison. People struggling with their mental health. I've mentioned that that's something we do and can do very, very well. People with rent arrears. So yes, we're proactive, yes, we're preventative, but again, you'll often know somebody who's about to get in rent arrears at the very early stages of rent arrears, and we don't want it to spiral. So that to me feels like a really good group to work with. People struggling with a change in circumstances. They may have lost a job, lost a partner, something's going on in their lives that means you're worrying about them and their ability to sustain their tenancy. People at risk of eviction. People who may be on a low income, again, perhaps because of a change of circumstances or other reasons that the rent has become unaffordable. Just a lovely quote from working with flagship tenants through Hopestead. And for me, this quote really sums up my team's approaches, coming from a place of equality, that somebody who was anxious about joining with learning difficulties and thought that would be a barrier, but felt listened to. And that's really, really important and a starting point for all the other outcomes. And I just want to share with you a brief video, because let's hear it from a trainee in their own words.
I didn't think it was going to be relaxed or anything. I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be like an actual. I don't know, like, you know, when you're in school and then you're doing exams, sort of thing. That's what I expected. That is what that's what I thought I was going into. So it was a bit nerve-wracking, to be honest. Oh, it was so different. Like, it was so relaxed. Everyone was so nice. Everyone had a laugh, and you know, we had, like, I've never met these people before in my life, but I was like, because everybody was so nice, it was like knowing them for ages. So it was really, I felt really comfortable, and it wasn't like sitting in an exam at all. It was just like a casual group discussion. I would tell her that everybody's so friendly, they make you feel so comfortable. If you don't know, if you've never done a Zoom call or anything like that, there's like a half an hour like introduction, they show you what to do, which was really helpful for me. And there's just a lot of guidance and help, so I would definitely recommend doing it. I've taken lots from the workshop, but mainly the thing that helped me the most was like the budgeting tips and saving tips, about those different places that help you with, like, if you're in debt or anything. there was a lot of suggestions, so I wrote those down, and like it's called step change, I think it's called step change, yeah. So I really appreciated that, and that helped me a lot. So a good course for if like you've got low confidence right now and you think, oh my goodness, I don't know anything about anything or finance or anything. When you go onto the course, you actually find yourself giving other people tips as well. So it's like, then you feel a bit more confident in yourself, because it's like, oh, I actually do know something. Like I have helped someone today. So I thought that was really helpful for me personally anyway. So yeah.
Okay, and because this is one of the ways we measure outcomes, I'd love you to grab your annotate function again. I have whistled through a lot, but there's that same statement from the beginning of the presentation. I understand how your own place supports tenancy sustainment to prevent homelessness. So grab your annotate again and remark yourself on the line, and let's hope many of you have got a bit more of an understanding about what it is we do and the difference it makes in preventing homelessness. So thank you. You are going wild up the right hand end with your annotations. I absolutely love it. Just going to give it 20 seconds more, and then I've literally got about 2 more slides to wrap up. Thank you, guys. A little mark on the nose there. I do like getting a mark on the nose. That's fantastic. Thank you. And I'm going to save that one as well, because it's evidence of progress. So thank you. And again, just a really great quote as I wrap up. It's made me realise that I can be independent again. So no one's pretending people go away, knowing everything. What they do is going away, knowing they've got the answers and can get more help. And I really hope, I think Paula's going to expand on that. So thank you again to all of you. You'll find a link on our homepage to sign up for our newsletter if you do want to find out more. That's me. You can find me on Twitter and on LinkedIn and on my phone. And I'm also going to put a link to my calendar in the chat, because if anybody wants to chat to me, as you've hopefully realised, it's my expert subject that I'm absolutely passionate about and the difference my team makes. So I shall come out of there and stop sharing. Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. That was excellent. I think what stood out for me was not only the skills that you helped develop in people, but also the sort of barriers that you helped to break down and open that door potentially for future engagement. Like you say, when people have a wobble or people may be sort of scared of being engaged, that door is open to sort of future conversations, and maybe people more likely to reach out when they need help in the future. So yeah, I think that's what stood out for me. So thanks very much. As Rebecca said, there will be opportunity to, I think you said there'll be opportunity to ask questions at the end, but I see a few questions in the chat, so we'll get to those. So we'll move on to Paula Tuck now, who is Assistant Director of Customer Services at Saffron, and we'll be talking about why they have partnered with Your Own Place to offer this service to their tenants. So Paula, can I hand over to you?
You can indeed, yes. Let me just load up my PowerPoint. Hopefully everyone can see that.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Rebecca. Not as interactive, my presentation, but what I'll be sharing with you all is how the workshops have been received by Saffron Tenants, the benefits, and how we can reach more tenants as part of the Independent East initiative. So it's kind of how we've put it into practice and how we can roll it out beyond that. So to start with, I'm just going to talk a little bit about how the partnership was born. So back in 2020, which seems a very long time ago, before the pandemic, when we knew how life was ticking along, Saffron actually launched the Community Foundation. And one of the key priorities was for Saffron to create and sustain ongoing relationships with our tenants across Norfolk and Suffolk. And the Community Foundation aims to create new initiatives and partnership working with local organisations and charities, ultimately to help tenants lead better lives and create places that people want to live. Now, the foundation is based around 6 themes, and one of those themes was around customer training. And we wanted to create a supportive relationship between landlord and tenant. And a key part of that we felt was empowering tenants, early intervention, and creating that trusted environment. This is when our discussion started with Your Own Place, and we realised early on that actually Your Own Place was much more than a training opportunity for our tenants. And the workshop covered a wide range of topics, which I know Rebecca's covered some of them there, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the ones that we looked at as part of the workshops that we rolled out at Saffron. So as I said, more than just training, we wanted to give our tenants an opportunity that was more than just training, and the workshops have been very much designed around the needs of our tenants. A chance for them to learn new skills, discover skills that they already had, share experiences and skills with others to create that true peer learning environment. Your Own Place offered a wide range of topics that appealed to us, such as savings, budget, self-care, well-being and digital skills, and that's just to name just a few. And I suppose one of the key benefits was that Your Own Place really took the time to understand our organisation, how we wanted to support our tenants, the expectations of those benefits, how we would measure them, and what were some of the challenges that we faced. So I suppose some of the challenges that we faced was actually how could we engage staff and tenants? How could we embed the referral process? We all know that we have busy lives, and this was something additional that we were asking staff to do, to refer tenants. So actually, what could we do to engage with staff? Digital barriers. So actually, were there tenants out there that didn't have access to either Wi-Fi or a digital device, for example? Childcare issues, time, and it could go on, I suppose. So one of the great things that we discovered early on was the staff workshops. So we looked at these challenges, everything was laid out on the table. And one of the nice things to see was colleagues from Your Own Place and Saffron working together to look at actually how we could overcome these barriers, how we could work together to deliver these workshops to our tenants. So I would say staff workshops were absolutely key to embedding it across our organisation. Some of the benefits that we've seen, so we've been working with Your Own Place for just under a year now. And some of the benefits that we've seen is helping tenants become more confident and empowered with their finances, helping create those long-term sustainable tenancies. So I suppose it's getting it right from the beginning. We don't want to see people fail, we want to see people succeed in their tenancies. Preventing costly and avoidable interventions, reducing rent arrears and ASB, creating that supportive network between tenants, and as Rebecca touched on earlier, that peer learning stuff really is gold. I'm going to share a little story which actually is very similar to the story that Rebecca shared, and this is around arrears. So we know that post from landlords often goes unopened if people aren't in the right frame of mind to open the post. And we had a tenant that attended one of the workshops that was in arrears with us, and they openly admitted that they hadn't opened post from us in the last 6 months. What we saw towards the end of those workshops is that tenant actually bought the post with them, and they opened them on that last day and shared that with the group. Now, that is, you think of where they were a few days before, and actually then all of a sudden we had seen a real change. They were in a completely different frame of mind. They'd opened the post and they were willing to engage with us as a landlord. And at that point, that's when we can really help them. That's when we can really work together. One of the other things Sarah briefly touched on is ASB. We all saw ASB was heightened during the pandemic. That's not just in the housing sector, that was across the country as everyone spent more time at home. What we saw as a benefit of the workshops actually was that individuals felt that they had the confidence and the knowledge to actually go out and seek the support, advice and guidance that they needed. So they knew where to look to actually get the support that they needed. So I suppose really the key benefit is empowering tenants to have the confidence to become self-sufficient and knowing where to find the answers. Key to success. So early days, we really struggled with referral rates, I'll be perfectly honest, but we had a great partnership with Your Own Place, so we could have some really honest conversations. We had regular updates and debriefs. What were we getting right? What weren't we getting right? What could we tweak? What were the quality of referrals like? One thing I'd say as well is believe in the referral process, and that's for the colleagues that are making the referrals, which is why those staff workshops and those getting it right early days is really important, because actually it was the staff that designed the referral process, which is why it works, because actually they then believed in it. Have a project plan, track your project benefits. Staff engagement workshops are key. Obviously the courses and the workshops themselves, absolutely. And your target market, actually, who initially are we going to focus on? Who are we going to target? Who do we really think would benefit from these courses and referrals? The good thing about Your Own Place is they are very flexible and very adaptable. Now, our relationship started with them during the pandemic. So what we saw was a shift to delivering this digitally, which was new for us all. And then as we've come out of the pandemic, we've got the mixture of digital and face-to-face workshops as well. So it just meant that we could reach as many tenants as possible through the mixture of digital and face-to-face sessions. Keys to success continued. So internal and external comms have been really vital to the success of this project. So internal comms, keeping the momentum going, keeping it live, keeping everyone focused. A little bit of healthy competition between teams and individuals for referrals helps. External comms, how we reaching our tenants externally. So, you know, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Actually, I think some of the real value came after the workshops had started to be delivered. So when we started to share some of that tenant feedback, that's the stuff that's really gold. And I've got some things to share with you in a moment. So actually, it's our tenants believing the feedback from our own tenants. That was the stuff that really worked. Continuous learning and positive, the positive impact that those that have attended the workshops. Now that had a benefit to not only the individuals that attended the courses, the individuals that were going to attend the courses, but also the staff that made the referrals as well. They could now start to see the true value. And I think one of the things that we found was that actually once a referrer got somebody over the line, so to speak, and they'd attended the workshop and they could see the benefits beyond that, that's when we could start to see actually then the referrals started to increase. Sharing success with others and barriers that people were coming across again. So that was staff supporting each other. We also looked at how we could make it work for individuals. There was one particular trainee that was extremely anxious. One of our neighbourhood officers met them at the venue, walked them in on their first day, and that worked really well. We also had feedback from a number of people that were really interested in attending the group, but they really would like it to be in an all-female environment, which absolutely we could accommodate, and that worked really well too. So it's about, I suppose, really listening to the feedback from not only staff, but also tenants and those that have attended the workshops as well. What can we do to accommodate people to make it work for them? And they're just a couple of the examples. I talked a little bit about continuous improvement and feedback. So this is some of the comms that we shared internally and externally. So from Saffron Tenants that had attended some of the workshops. So everyone is friendly. A really good thing is that you can have a break if you feel anxious. 100% of trainees that attended the digital sessions said it increased their confidence, which is great. And there was an awful lot of feedback around friendliness of the trainers and also the group as well. And there was some really great friendships born out of these groups as well. So just to think of a couple, there was a couple of people that found that they had similar pets. I can't remember if it was snakes or spiders, but it was something very unusual, and they really connected. There was also individuals as well that felt very lonely, and they connected and they started going out for dog walks together. So I've touched a little bit on cohesive communities. That's a great example, isn't it? All of a sudden you've got relationships and communities building there. And actually they're things that they wouldn't have necessarily shared in everyday life, but they obviously felt comfortable in this environment to talk about their spiders and snakes and many other things. Okay, so what Saffron Tenants said. Now, this is the stuff that I personally think is really the gold, the truly life-changing stuff. When you realise actually what an impact it's had on people's lives. I mean, I don't need to say it there. One of the phrases there is, it's been life-changing. Realised I'm capable of doing and being more successful in my own decisions. I have more faith now. So that's people really believing in themselves. And that was something that I touched on earlier. It's not just about learning new skills. It's about I suppose, bringing those skills and those experiences that you actually do already have, you just haven't got the confidence or the knowledge that you already know. After the workshop, we had an individual that found the confidence to undertake a volunteer training with Turning Point. She's now on her way to becoming a facilitator for them, which is great. We had an individual that was really interested in learning about nails and beauty, and actually we helped her source and part fund a course. So she started a course which she wouldn't have done before. We've heard from Shantae there, and obviously that's some of the feedback that we've had from her. Some of the other things are, I've had an unbelievable burning desire to go home and get all lost and dusty bills and pay and organise them. I feel so much more positive about them now. So I suppose this is the stuff that for me really makes it, and actually you can really see actually the value of the workshops. So at this point, it only just reached Saffron Tenants. We were really keen to work and look at actually how can we reach more tenants across Norfolk and Suffolk. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Independent East and how Independent East was born, what it's about, and actually what difference it's going to make as part of our relationship with Your Own Place going forward. So Broadland, Freebridge, Havebury, Orwell and Saffron have formed Independent East. And the aim of Independent East is sharing knowledge, experience and good practice, and also creating a collective lobbying voice for social housing in the region. It's made up of independently minded and individually sustainable housing associations with similar complementary values and business objectives as well. Based in Norfolk and Suffolk, we're willing to share knowledge and experience with each other, support each other in the delivery of our individual corporate strategies, and also to explore opportunities how we can work better together. And the Your Own Place partnership is obviously a great example of us being able to do that. How can we work better together, and how can we reach more tenants across the region? How can we create those cohesive communities across Norfolk and Suffolk? So the partnership with Your Own Place is a really exciting collaborative initiative for Independent East, as I said, with the aim of helping more people into employment, reducing rent arrears and reducing potential future evictions as well. So that's that really early intervention stuff that I was talking about. The workshops, as you can see, have been really well received by Saffron Tenants, and the feedback from staff has shown that it can truly be life-changing. And for staff as well. So I've said tenants there, but actually it's staff as well, because actually staff have seen a real change in some of our tenants. So as part of the Independent East initiative, we now have the opportunity to reach more tenants across the region. And the workshops are being offered to the tenants of Saffron, Freebridge, Orwell and Broadland housing. And this means that we can reach those tenants and give a real opportunity for mixed tenant groups. So mixed tenant groups across those 4 different housing associations, which creates more of an opportunity for that peer learning and that shared experience that we talked about. So not only is it a great opportunity for tenants to learn new skills, but it provides scope for them to meet tenants from other housing associations. Just repeating myself, and I'm really sorry. Share their experiences and support one another and create those communities. So many more dog walking, maybe on the beaches this time, who knows? But yeah, many more of those kind of discussions. So next steps for Independent East and the Your Own Place partnership. I suppose my parting gift here, or my parting statement, is it's important that a person simply gets the support that they need, and this requires organisations to realise that they're part of a bigger system of tackling inequality and the need to work together, which is absolutely what Independent East is. So that's why, as 4 community-focused housing associations, we decided to work with Your Own Place to help make tenancies more sustainable. There are knock-on effects and benefits of tenants from different HAs meeting each other and creating peer-to-peer support, and in doing so, moving away from reliance. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. That was excellent, really interesting. Echoed a lot of the themes that Rebecca talked about in terms of building that confidence, I guess, with tenants and opening those doors for future communications, and also liked the fact of sort of touching on the peer learning and how it's important for tenants to hear from other tenants.
Yeah,
so I guess that breaks down those barriers, that they're hearing it from their peers. it's not so much of a them and us type of situation. And also liked the point about, making sure that staff are trained up and staff know about the pathways, and it seems really important. So I can't see any questions, but let me just check. Can't see any at the moment. If anyone wants to ask a question, then you can use the raise your hand button, or at this point you can unmute yourself. I think we're it's not too busy. I just wanted to ask the first question really myself, is sort of how do the pathways work in practice within your organisation, and are they similar in each of the Independent East housing associations? And also, it's sort of three questions really. And how does it work across sort of care and supported housing and general needs? Is it both? Is it like a partnership between those sort of two departments?
That's many questions, Vicky.
Yes.
That's many questions.
Sorry.
I suppose, although there's the Alliance of Independent East, we are obviously all slightly different. So I think one of the things I talked about was Your Own Place are really keen to understand the organisation, how it works, what the setup's like. So one of the things that they ask early on is, what does the organisation structure look like? So actually, where are those referrals going to come from, and how is that going to work? So the referral process is generically probably very similar across organisations, with some tweaks. The bit that really works, it's kind of like, it's a little bit of a relay. It's like passing the baton. So actually, once we've got the referral, we'll then pass it on to Rebecca's team at Your Own Place, and what they're really good at is keeping in touch with those tenants. So they'll make those initial calls, those discussions, and make sure that, I suppose, we're passing across a warm lead, and it's keeping it warm and getting it warmer as we move towards the workshop dates. So making sure that we obviously understand any fears or concerns that people might have about attending the workshops, and they work with us to address those. So it's a real joint effort. So generally the referral process is very similar, but there are tweaks depending on your organisation's setup, because some of the housing associations part of Independent East already have a tenancy sustainability team, for example, but that's a very different service to the workshops that Your Own Place deliver. I can only speak for Saffron, for when you were talking about those perhaps in extra care, or perhaps our older tenants. We have wellbeing coordinators, so it's those discussions with our wellbeing coordinators, and it would be those that would make the referrals to Your Own Place. Whether that's digital, face-to-face, or whether actually it might be one that could be held on one of the estates as a whole. They really are very flexible. So it really depends on what the tenant's needs are as to actually what the delivery will look like.
And do you have you had any tenants that have sort of decided that they don't want to do it, or how much do you push it?
Yeah, we've had a couple that have dropped out for personal reasons, or we've had some that have moved to a different date. And one of the things that we learned as part of the delivery at Saffron was that the workshop in August, we really struggled with attendance in that. So whether that was people wanting to commit to the date, or whether people were kicking it down to the next workshop. Then we realised obviously it was school holidays, people had other commitments, and actually it just wasn't a sensible time to deliver a workshop. So that's something that we'll know we've learned for next time, and actually that's something that we've been able to feed into Independent East. We've had we've had a couple of people that have changed their minds, or a couple of people that want breathing space, but we will go back to those. And it's tough, isn't it, because it has to be the right decision for them. They have to want to be able to attend, and that's the real value, isn't it? They have to be ready to be able to take that next step to attend. So we would never push somebody into attending. It's their decision, but we'll do everything that we can to support them and answer any questions or relieve any anxieties or fears. I suppose the neighbourhood officer meeting that individual and walking them in on their first day was probably a great example of actually that working.
Thank you. I think that's probably answered one of the questions from Amy Yang, who says, do you enforce attendance of the workshop as a condition of offering a property? No, doesn't sound like. And Hazel from Hazel O'Halloran from Bromford is asking, how does the funding work? Not sure if you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, so we're a social enterprise. So from our angle, I'll hand over to Paula, but yeah, we are a commissioned service. So we don't have core funding, and we are commissioned by housing authorities, housing associations, and third sector organisations, among others, as I've mentioned, the prison and others who have anyone who has that interest and need to prevent homelessness comes to us. We work up proposals, they secure the business case, and I'm guessing the cash, and we agree a contract, and we are commissioned to deliver. I set up a social enterprise, with a very specific aim that aligned with the values I wanted us to have. And what that enables us to do is to be flexible, because I worked in this space for 20 odd years and seen, very large, big lottery funded projects, but you're then bound by the big lottery outputs and outcomes. Whereas if Saffron commission us, Saffron get what Saffron need. And that for me is the sort of the thrill of the social enterprise model. And that's how it works from our end. Paula?
I think you've answered it, Rebecca, to be fair. I think you've answered it. So yes, for us, it was seeing the true value of the project, putting a business case forward, and obviously budgets allowing. That's where we are today.
Excellent, thank you. Does anyone else have anything they wanted to ask? I can't see any questions.
Sorry, can I just ask?
Yes, please.
Sorry, because I came in a bit late at the beginning of it. So I'm based down in Devon. So are you kind of based around the east of the country? I mean, what do you work within a locality?
We're situated in Norwich, but we work anywhere. Again, the beauty of being a social enterprise means that if you commission us, we will meet your needs if we can make that work financially in collaboration with you. So we are therefore a national organisation who can go anywhere.
Thank you.
I think Greg Headley, Greg, you've got a question. If you could just say where you're from, that'd be good. Thanks.
Yeah, so I'm a partnership manager from Homeless Link. Are you able to work with people with more complex needs? And maybe you've just answered that, Rebecca, by saying you can flex how you develop things. But is what you're doing suitable for people with some ongoing drug or alcohol issues, for instance, or some mental health issues that are ongoing and unmanaged?
Thanks, Greg, for the question. Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, we've only turned one person down in 8 years. Our sort of absolute aim is always to be inclusive, remove the barriers, and work with as many people as we can. And that will be done on a basis of, that's why the partnership is so important with the customer, to build an information sharing protocol so that we can be really honest. It's not about thresholds. It's about actually who's in the room. What does the risk assessment look like? Do we need to send 2 facilitators, or is it only 1? So yes, of course, we've had people in the room with a range of needs. And that's, as far as is absolutely possible, we manage that on a case-by-case basis, because the aim is to be inclusive. But ultimately, sometimes excluding is including, because if it prevents other people from gaining maximum benefit from the workshop, then we would have to make difficult decisions. But yes, we've worked with people in a whole range of mental health, alcohol, substance misuse situations.
Thanks, Rebecca. There is a tick next to Anthony Valentine, but I'm not sure that means if he wants to ask a question or not. Anthony, you feel free if you do. If you don't, then don't worry. Don't think anyone else has got any questions. So we're probably going to, hang on, what's this? No, he says that's fine. Okay, no worries, no worries. So I think we're going to probably wrap up a bit early, actually. But before we do, I'd just like to thank Rebecca and Paula again for sharing your very valuable and interesting insights into the whole sector, whole area of tenancy and life skills training. Sorry, I shouldn't say training. Workshops. Yeah, we'll be sharing the presentation and recording after this, and I think Rebecca's put her contact details in the chat, but if you miss it, then please don't hesitate to reach out, and I'm sure that they will be very interested to hear from anyone who wants to get in touch. So yeah, thank you. Thanks for all coming today. Do watch out for future Homes for Cathy events. We've got a few more lined up this coming year, so it'd be great to see as many of you as possible there. So thank you.